Imagine being in a foreign country, scared, alone, and suddenly someone risks everything to save you. This is the story of Irina, a Russian tourist, and Jalen, the man who became her protector, and eventually, her love. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe because this story will melt your heart and inspire you. Irina's heart was pounding with excitement as she stepped off the plane, the crisp autumn air of New York City brushing against her cheeks. For years, she had dreamed of this moment, her very first trip outside of Russia. And now, it was real. The streets were alive with energy, neon lights flickering across tall skyscrapers, the smell of roasted peanuts and hot pretzels mingling with the faint tang of exhaust. She clutched her small backpack tightly, taking in every detail, every sound, every sensation. From the moment she arrived, Irina had been swept away by the novelty of everything around her. The cafes with their oversized cups of coffee, the endless food trucks with sizzling meats and fragrant sauces, the little diners that promised enormous slices of pizza bigger than her head. She was in heaven. Each bite of an American burger or a slice of New York-style cheesecake felt like discovering a secret treasure, and she had quickly become a connoisseur of street food. Even the simple things, the buttery smell of bagels or the sweet tang of maple syrup on pancakes, made her giggle with delight. Irina had always been curious, adventurous, and a little naive, the kind of traveler who believed that the world was mostly kind and that people would smile at her excitement. She had studied English in school, but in practice she only knew basic phrases, just enough to order food or ask for directions. Still, she felt confident. She had planned every day of her trip meticulously, mapping out museums, parks, and little hidden cafes she had found online. Today had been perfect. She had spent hours wandering through the Metropolitan Museum of Art, marveling at paintings she had only seen in textbooks, then grabbed a slice of pepperoni pizza from a corner shop. Savoring every warm, cheesy bite, as the evening descended, the streets began to glow under the soft, golden light of street lamps. Irina was heading back to her apartment, her steps light and bouncy, her short shoulder-length hair brushing against her bare arms. She wore a sleeveless summer shirt, a little top she had picked out for the warm day, paired with comfortable jeans and sneakers. The city seemed to hum around her, a comforting background to the rhythm of her heartbeat. She hummed a little tune under her breath, feeling like she was part of something bigger than herself, a tiny piece of a vast, vibrant world. Her walk led her to a bus stop where a few people were waiting. She climbed aboard, grateful for the air conditioning and the chance to rest her aching feet. The bus rattled along the streets, neon signs flashing outside the windows. She held onto a pole, swaying slightly as the vehicle navigated through traffic. Everything felt normal. She thought about the pizza she had eaten, the cheesecake she was planning to buy tomorrow, the little souvenirs she had already picked up. And then it all shifted. A group of men, slightly older than her, took notice of her as she stood near the middle of the bus. At first it was subtle, eyes lingering a second too long, smirks exchanged between them, but it quickly escalated. One of them leaned a little too close, brushing his hand against her arm under the guise of balancing himself as the bus jerked forward. She flinched, her stomach tightening, her excitement curdling into a knot of fear. "Hey! What's a pretty little thing like you doing all alone?" One of the men sneered, his voice low, menacing. They surrounded her, pressing in from all sides, creating a wall she couldn't step around. She tried to back away, but every move seemed to only trap her further. Her mind raced. She barely knew English, and even if she tried to yell, would anyone understand her? She could feel the heat of their proximity, the unwanted touches, the crude comments slicing through the air. Panic surged in her chest. Her fingers tightened on the pole, knuckles white, as she realized she was utterly alone, vulnerable, at the mercy of strangers who seemed to take pleasure in her fear. Time seemed to stretch. Each second was a weight pressing against her chest, every jerk of the bus making her flinch. She looked around desperately, hoping for someone to intervene, anyone. Her heart was pounding so hard she thought the entire bus could hear it. And then he appeared, Jalen. He didn't hesitate. He didn't pause to assess the situation or weigh the risks. His presence was immediate, commanding, impossible to ignore. He stepped between Irina and the men, his tall frame solid and protective, his gaze sharp, unwavering. "Back off," he said, his voice low but firm, carrying a weight that brooked no argument. The men hesitated, caught off guard. This wasn't what they expected. A stranger stepping up to challenge them. Jalen didn't flinch, didn't waver. He positioned himself slightly in front of Irina, a living shield, and gave them a look that was calm, yet dangerous. I said, "Back off." The tension in the bus was palpable. The air was thick with anticipation. Irina could barely process what was happening. She was terrified, yes, but also, somewhere deep inside, a spark of relief ignited. She wasn't alone anymore. The men, realizing they had underestimated him, muttered curses and moved aside, shuffling awkwardly towards the back of the bus. Jalen didn't take his eyes off them until they had completely retreated. Only then did he turn to Irina, his expression softening slightly, though still alert. "Are you okay?" he asked, his accent smooth, confident, reassuring. Irina's chest heaved, her words catching in her throat. She could barely speak, but the relief flooding through her made her lips tremble into a grateful smile. Thank you," she stammered, her accent thick but understandable. Jalen nodded, a faint smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. "You're welcome. It's dangerous to be alone on a bus sometimes." Irina's mind raced, still in shock, but slowly trying to make sense of what had just happened. She looked at him, really looked at him for the first time. The way his presence seemed to fill the space. The warmth and strength in his stance, the calm authority that had made the men back off without a single blow. She wanted to say something else, something meaningful, but her limited English betrayed her. Instead, she nodded, a shy, grateful gesture. Jalen noticed, and in that small moment, a silent understanding passed between them, a connection that didn't need words. One born out of danger, protection, and trust. As the bus neared her stop, he offered a hand to guide her off, steadying her as the vehicle slowed to a halt. The city lights reflected off the wet pavement from a recent drizzle, casting a soft glow over the street. Irina felt a strange mixture of fear and awe, adrenaline and wonder, all swirling together. "Where are you staying?" Jalen asked, breaking the silence as they stepped off the bus. Irina hesitated, fumbling with the pronunciation of her apartment address. Apartment, Central Street," she said, voice small but determined. "I can walk you there," he offered gently. "It's not safe to wander alone at night." Her heart fluttered, a combination of gratitude, nervousness, and something else she couldn't yet name. She nodded, letting him lead the way through the bustling streets, feeling a little safer with each step. For Irina, that night marked the beginning of more than just a memorable adventure in a new country. It was the start of a story she hadn't expected, a story of courage, kindness, and maybe, just maybe, love. The next morning, sunlight spilled through the narrow blinds of Irina's small apartment, casting golden lines across the wooden floor. She stirred awake, still feeling the echo of the previous night, the sudden terror on the bus, the rush of adrenaline, and most of all, the image of Jalen standing between her and the men. She sat up, brushing a strand of short, shoulder-length hair from her face, and let out a small sigh. For a tourist who had dreamed of this trip for years, the experience had been nothing like she had imagined. But somewhere in the chaos, she had glimpsed something extraordinary. A kindness so unassuming it left her breathless. After a quick shower and a simple breakfast of toast and fruit she had bought from a nearby market, Irina debated whether to step outside. Part of her wanted to explore the city, to continue her adventure as planned, but another part still shivered at the memory of the bus. Then her phone buzzed. A new message from an unknown number. "Hey, it's Jalen. Are you okay? You don't have to be alone today. I can show you around if you want." Her heart skipped a beat. She stared at the screen, reading and rereading the message. It was so simple, so unassuming, yet it carried a warmth that made her smile uncontrollably. After a few moments of hesitation, she typed back in her broken but earnest English, "Yes. Thank you." Within minutes, a reply came. "Great. I'll meet you outside your building in 10 minutes. Don't worry, we'll have fun." 10 minutes later, Jalen arrived, casually leaning against his sleek black car. He wore a simple shirt and jeans, but there was a presence about him, an effortless confidence, a sense of calm control that made Irina's nerves settle immediately. When he saw her, his face lit up in a warm, reassuring smile. "Morning, Irina," he greeted. His voice had a smooth, melodic quality, and she noticed how effortlessly he seemed to communicate kindness without relying on words alone. "Morning," she replied softly, her accent coloring her words, but her smile wide enough to convey all the gratitude she couldn't put into sentences. They began walking together, the city around them alive with sounds, honking cars, distant sirens, and the chatter of people going about their mornings. Jalen had taken it upon himself to plan their day, knowing the risks of someone unfamiliar with the city navigating alone. He suggested they start with a visit to a popular street market, a place buzzing with energy and colors that reminded Irina why she had fallen in love with America the day before. As they walked, Jalen pointed out small details she might have missed. An old bookshop tucked between two tall buildings, a cafe known for its homemade pastries, a mural painted on a brick wall that depicted the city's skyline in vivid colors. Irina followed his gestures with wide eyes, occasionally laughing at his playful exaggerations or mimicking his expressions when he pretended to struggle reading a sign in Spanish. Though her English was limited, the communication flowed effortlessly. Smiles, gestures, and shared laughter became a language of its own. At the market, Irina marveled at the vibrant stalls, each one a feast for the senses. Vendors called out in rhythmic chants, offering fresh fruit, handmade jewelry, and exotic spices. Jalen guided her carefully, letting her touch and examine the items, explaining their origins in simple, clear sentences. He watched her face light up as she tasted a sample of honeyed roasted nuts, her eyes widening at the unexpected sweetness. "You like?" he asked, raising an eyebrow playfully. "Very delicious," she said, grinning from ear to ear. Her voice carried a soft musical lilt, something that made Jalen pause for a moment and take her in. Noticing how the sunlight caught the highlights in her short hair and the way her eyes sparkled with unfiltered wonder. They bought a few small treats, and Jalen suggested they sit on a nearby bench to rest. Irina watched him casually people watch, observing his quiet attentiveness. The way he noticed a street performer struggling with his guitar, the way he offered directions to a lost tourist, the way he adjusted his posture slightly when a cyclist nearly bumped into them. There was a sense of responsibility about him, a calm awareness that made her feel safe without feeling smothered. As they sat, a street musician began playing a gentle tune on a violin, the notes drifting through the air and mingling with the chatter and footsteps around them. Irina closed her eyes briefly, letting the music wash over her. Jalen watched her, noticing the peaceful smile that softened her features. "You like music?" he asked softly, careful not to startle her. "Yes." "Very much," she replied. "In Russia, sometimes. Quiet streets, only birds, very different?" Jalen nodded, understanding without needing her to explain further. "You'll hear a lot of different music here. Every corner has a song." Their walk continued into the afternoon, weaving through small streets lined with shops, cafes, and bakeries. Jalen guided her to a place that specialized in sandwiches layered with ingredients Irina had never seen before. She watched in fascination as he ordered, gesturing to her to choose her own. She pointed to a sandwich that looked simple enough, but when she took a bite, the explosion of flavors made her giggle in delight. "This? Very good," she said between bites, her eyes wide. "You like it?" Jalen smiled, pleased. "Americans do a lot of crazy food things. You'll see." They laughed together, and in that laughter, Irina felt a lightness she hadn't known since leaving home. There was no fear, no tension, only the joy of discovery and the warmth of someone who seemed to understand her, even without perfect words. As the sun began to lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the streets, Jalen suggested they take a stroll through a nearby park. The city's noise faded slightly, replaced by the rustle of leaves and the occasional bark of a dog. Irina's excitement at exploring this green space was palpable. She ran ahead slightly, twirling in place, then turned to watch a flock of birds take off in unison. Jalen followed at a leisurely pace, his hands casually tucked into his pockets, eyes always on her. Ensuring she was safe, while allowing her the freedom to move. They found a small fountain in the middle of the park and sat on its edge, watching the water ripple and sparkle in the fading light. Irina leaned back, her expression contemplative. She thought of how foreign this world felt, how different yet intoxicating, and how someone like Jalen had entered it in the most unexpected way. "Thank you," she said suddenly, almost whispering. "Yesterday, you saved me. Very brave." Jalen shrugged, a faint blush rising on his cheeks. "I just didn't like seeing someone get hurt. Simple as that." Her gaze met his, and in that moment, a silent acknowledgement passed between them. A recognition that what had started as a random act of courage was slowly becoming something more. There was no rush, no words needed to define it yet. Only the subtle electricity in the air, the warmth of shared glances, and the quiet heartbeat of connection. As evening fell, they decided to take the subway back toward Irina's apartment. The tunnels were dimly lit, echoing with the distant sounds of trains and footsteps. Irina clutched her bag a little tighter, not out of fear this time, but out of habit. Jalen walked beside her, a steady presence, occasionally offering a hand to steady her as the train swayed. On the train, a man with a loud voice and an overbearing presence noticed them and began muttering insults, trying to provoke a reaction. Irina tensed, but before anything could escalate, Jalen subtly shifted, positioning himself between Irina and the man, his calm authority again doing what words could not. The man muttered something else, glanced at Jalen, and chose to step away. Irina let out a quiet laugh, a mixture of relief and nervous energy. "You always hero?" she asked, teasing gently. "Not always," Jalen replied with a smirk. "But it's hard to ignore someone in trouble." The rest of the ride passed quietly, punctuated by soft conversation, small gestures, and the growing sense of trust and camaraderie. By the time they reached her stop, the city was glowing with streetlights, the night alive with possibilities. "Walk me to my door," Irina asked softly, almost hesitantly. "Of course," Jalen replied. He guided her through the familiar streets, now cast in shadows and golden lamplight, and when they reached her apartment, he paused. "Thank you, Irina," he said, a hint of seriousness in his tone. "For letting me help today. I liked it." She smiled, her short hair brushing her shoulders as she nodded. "I liked it too." It was a small moment, but significant. In a world so vast and unfamiliar, two strangers had found an unexpected connection, born out of courage, trust, and the first flickers of something that could grow into love. And for Irina, the adventure she had dreamed of for so long was no longer just about sightseeing or tasting exotic food. It was about discovering the unexpected, the thrilling and the tender human connections that made life richer than any postcard could ever capture. The night was thick with fog, the streets of the city glowing dimly under the yellow haze of street lamps. Irina had insisted on exploring a late-night food festival, and Jalen had insisted on accompanying her, part protection, part genuine enjoyment of her company. The crowd was dense, music pulsing from speakers above, the smells of fried dough, grilled meats, and sweet caramel drifting through the air. Irina's eyes sparkled as she darted from stall to stall, tasting everything she could. "This is amazing," she said, her accent curling the words in a way that made Jalen smile. She popped a small piece of funnel cake into her mouth, licking sugar from her fingers, laughing as she looked at him. "You're a food critic in the making," Jalen teased. Gently nudging her with his elbow, she giggled, brushing a stray lock of hair behind her ear. "Maybe, but only here, only in America." They moved along the crowded path, Jalen's eyes scanning for any threats while Irina marveled at the lights and colors. For the first time, she felt completely free, almost forgetting the fear she had felt on that bus. But the city had a way of reminding her that safety was never guaranteed. As they rounded a corner, the crowd thinned slightly, leaving them in a narrow alleyway. The soft hum of music faded, replaced by distant sirens and the occasional shout. Then they appeared. 3 men, shadows stretching long under the dim light, blocking the path ahead. Irina's stomach tightened instantly. "Not again," she whispered, clutching her bag. Jalen's expression hardened, his stance protective. "Stay behind me," he said, his voice calm but firm. The men smirked, one stepping forward. Well, well, what do we have here? Little tourist alone again? Irina's mind raced. Her limited English left her paralyzed. She couldn't respond quickly enough. One of the men reached out, brushing against her arm. The familiar terror clawed at her chest, but this time, she didn't feel completely helpless. Jalen was there, solid, unyielding, a wall between her and the danger. "Back off," Jalen said, his voice low, authoritative, carrying a threat that made the men hesitate. But these men were brazen, fueled by alcohol and arrogance. One of them lunged forward, trying to push past him toward Irina. Jalen moved instantly, sidestepping, twisting, and blocking the attack without raising his voice. The fight was swift and precise, a controlled dance of strength and protection. Irina watched, heart pounding as he maneuvered between her and the assailants. It wasn't just physical skill. It was presence, authority, courage. Every time a hand reached for her, Jalen was there, stopping it. The alley echoed with the grunts and shouts of the men, but Jalen's focus never wavered. "You think you can scare her?" he shouted finally, grabbing the lead man by the collar and pulling him close. His eyes were sharp, unwavering. "You'll regret it if you touch her." The men hesitated, assessing him. Jalen's confidence was absolute, and there was an underlying threat in the way he stood, the way he held them at bay without needing to strike a single devastating blow. After a tense moment, they backed away, muttering curses, before disappearing into the foggy night. Irina let out a shaky breath, tears pricking her eyes, not from fear alone, but from the overwhelming sense of relief and gratitude. She looked at Jalen, her chest heaving slightly, and whispered, "Thank you so much." Jalen softened, his hand brushing lightly against hers, not forceful, just a gentle grounding touch. "You're safe now," he said. "I've got you." For a moment the world fell away. The alley, the city noise, the lingering tension. All that existed was Jalen, steady and strong, and Irina, vulnerable yet unafraid, standing close enough to feel the warmth radiating from him. The adrenaline from the danger lingered, heightening every sensation. Irina's pulse raced, but not just from fear. It was a different kind of energy, an electric connection that neither of them fully acknowledged yet. Jalen's gaze softened as he looked at her, noticing the way her short hair framed her delicate face, how her eyes sparkled even in the dim light, how her lips trembled slightly as she tried to form words. "You don't have to be afraid," he said softly. "Not with me." Irina swallowed hard, her voice barely above a whisper. I'm not afraid. Not now." They walked together out of the alley, side by side, the tension gradually releasing with each step. The festival lights twinkled in the distance, music carrying faintly, blending with the sounds of the city at night. Irina glanced at him, the gratitude in her eyes deepening into something warmer, more intimate. "Jalen," she began hesitantly, Thank you for everything. Yesterday, today, I don't know what I would have done without you." He turned to her, a small, almost shy smile tugging at his lips. "You don't have to say it. Just stick with me. That's enough." Their steps slowed as they reached a small park, the quiet of the night surrounding them. The city felt distant here, softened by the gentle rustle of leaves and the occasional distant horn. They sat on a bench, the adrenaline fading, replaced by a quiet intimacy. Irina turned toward him, her voice barely audible. "You always so brave?" He shrugged, though there was a glint of amusement in his eyes. "I try, only for people I care about." Her heart skipped. She had never met someone so effortlessly protective, so calm in the face of danger, yet kind and gentle in ordinary moments. She wanted to say something more, to tell him how she felt, but the words tangled in her throat. Instead, she let a shy smile speak for her. Jalen leaned back slightly, giving her space, but keeping close enough that their shoulders brushed. "You know," he said, his tone lighter now, "you've got a lot of courage yourself. Being alone in a foreign country, trying new things. Most people wouldn't do that." Irina's cheeks flushed. "I'm scared too. Very scared. But with you, less." He caught her gaze, and for the first time the unspoken truth hung between them, The bond forged in danger, in shared moments of vulnerability, was transforming into something more. The alley, the bus, the city's shadows, all of it had led to this fragile, beautiful moment. Minutes passed. Neither spoke, but neither felt the need. The night wrapped around them, a quiet cocoon of trust and growing affection. Irina reached out instinctively, letting her hand brush against his. Jalen's hand found hers, a gentle squeeze affirming what words could not yet convey. For Irina, the fear she had carried since stepping onto that first bus months ago had melted away, replaced by a warmth that was more thrilling than any food, any cityscape, any adventure she had dreamed of. She realized that this trip, her first adventure outside Russia, had become more than a journey. It was a story of courage, connection, and the beginnings of love. The night deepened, and as they walked back toward her apartment, their hands intertwined. The city around them felt alive, not with danger, but with possibility. Jalen glanced down at her, a small, teasing smile playing at his lips. "You know," he said, "if you keep eating like this, you're going to need a personal trainer." Irina laughed, the sound light and free. "Maybe you help me?" "Personal guide?" He chuckled softly, the warmth in his eyes deepening. "I think I can manage that." And in that laughter, that gentle touch, that quiet understanding, both of them knew something had shifted. The fear, the tension, the danger, they had faced it together, and it had bound them in a way neither could ignore. By the time Irina reached her apartment, the city lights reflected in her eyes, mirroring the spark that had ignited between them. She turned to Jalen, wanting to say more, to thank him again, to confess a fraction of the feelings stirring within her. But instead, she simply smiled, and he smiled back. It was enough, for now. The climax had passed, but the story of Irina and Jalen was just beginning. The trials, the laughter, the adventures, they were waiting, just beyond the city lights, ready to unfold in a tale of courage, trust, and love that neither of them could have predicted. The morning sunlight spilled softly into Irina's apartment, brushing across the small kitchen where she sat at the table, sipping a cup of coffee. The events of the past 2 days replayed in her mind. The terror on the bus, the alley, the adrenaline that had bound her to Jalen in a way she couldn't yet define. But today, the fear had been replaced by warmth, a quiet anticipation that made her chest flutter. Her phone buzzed with a message. She glanced at it, and a small smile formed across her face. "Morning, Irina. Ready for today's adventure?" She typed back quickly. "Yes, ready. See you soon." By mid-morning, Jalen arrived, casually leaning against his car, a warm smile on his face. He had changed out of the shirt from yesterday into something more casual. But to Irina, it didn't matter what he wore. He always seemed composed, confident and safe. "Good morning," he greeted, extending his hand in a playful gesture. Irina shook it briefly, her smile teasing. "Good morning, Jalen. Ready," she said, her broken English carrying a charm that made him chuckle. "I know," he replied. "Let's go. I have something special planned today." They walked together toward the waterfront, the city slowly waking around them. Irina's excitement returned as she saw the ferries gliding across the water, the sunlight reflecting off the rippling waves. The smell of salty air mixed with the faint scent of baked goods from nearby cafes. Jalen pointed out landmarks, telling her simple stories about the history of the city. And she listened intently, eyes wide, occasionally laughing at his gestures or attempts to pronounce Russian words. "You know," he said, nudging her gently, "I think you'd fit in anywhere. You have this curiosity, this energy that's hard to ignore." Irina's cheeks flushed. "I try, but sometimes scared. Many things. Different. Good different, though," he said softly. "You see things others might miss because you're paying attention. That's a good thing." They boarded a ferry, the water sparkling under the midday sun. Irina held onto the railing, feeling the wind in her hair and the gentle sway of the boat beneath her. Jalen stood beside her, close enough that she could feel the warmth radiating from his body, his presence steady and reassuring. "I like this," she whispered almost to herself. "Very peaceful." "Me too," Jalen replied, glancing at her. "It's better with company, though." Her heart skipped. She looked at him, the sunlight catching the golden undertones in her short hair, the way her eyes sparkled with both excitement and trust. For the first time, she realized she didn't just like his company. She wanted it, more than she wanted anything else on this trip. As the day went on, they explored museums, small boutiques, and quiet streets that seemed untouched by the city's usual chaos. Jalen had a way of blending guidance with gentle freedom, letting Irina lead sometimes while ensuring her safety and comfort. She laughed at his attempts to imitate the local accent, and he laughed at her pronunciation of English words. During a pause at a small park, Irina sat on a bench while Jalen bought 2 ice creams from a nearby cart. When he returned, he handed her a cone and she took it carefully, savoring the sweet taste. "You always pick the best flavors," she said, giggling. "Not always," he replied with a grin. "But today, I think I nailed it." The afternoon melted into evening. They found themselves at a quiet overlook, watching the sun dip below the horizon, painting the sky with shades of pink, orange, and violet. Irina leaned against the railing, feeling a mix of awe and contentment. Jalen stood close beside her, their shoulders brushing, the air between them charged with unspoken feelings. "You know," Jalen said quietly, "I've enjoyed showing you around. More than I thought I would." Irina turned to him, eyes searching his face. Me too," she admitted softly. "Many happy moments with you." He looked at her, really looked, and for a moment, the world around them, the bustling city, the fading sunlight, the distant hum of traffic, disappeared. Only the two of them existed. He reached out slowly, brushing a loose strand of her hair behind her ear, his fingers lingering against her cheek. "Irina," he said, his voice low and intimate. I like you more than I should." Maybe. Her heart thumped violently. She had felt it too, the spark, the connection that had grown from fear into trust, from trust into admiration, and now into something deeper. She smiled shyly, her short hair catching the last rays of sun. I like you too," she whispered, her accent soft and melodic. Jalen's hand found hers, fingers intertwining, holding her with a gentleness that made her feel safe and cherished all at once. He leaned slightly, giving her the choice, and she tilted her head, letting him close the gap. Their lips met in a tender, hesitant kiss, the kind that spoke of shared danger, mutual respect, and newfound love. The city lights flickered on around them, reflecting off the water like stars. Irina rested her head on Jalen's shoulder, feeling a warmth she had never known in a foreign land. For the first time since arriving, she felt completely at home, not in the city, not in the skyscrapers, but in the presence of someone who saw her, protected her, and now loved her. They walked back toward her apartment, hand in hand, talking softly, laughing gently, their steps in sync. Every small gesture, the brushing of fingers, the shared smiles, the quiet teasing, cemented their bond. Back at her apartment, they paused at the door. Irina turned to him, eyes bright. "Thank for everything, Jalen," she said softly. He smiled, leaning slightly closer. "Always, Irina, always." She stepped inside, glancing back once. Jalen stood there, a reassuring figure in the city night, and she realized that this was more than just a trip, more than just adventure. This was the beginning of something lasting, something real. In the weeks that followed, Irina and Jalen continued exploring the city together. She learned more English, laughed more freely, and allowed herself to feel completely. Jalen shared his favorite spots, introducing her to hidden gems she never would have found alone. And in each shared moment, whether tasting new foods, watching street performers, or simply walking through quiet streets, they discovered that love often grows in the spaces where courage and kindness meet. One evening, as they sat watching the sunset from the park where they had shared their first kiss, Irina leaned against Jalen, feeling the steady beat of his heart against hers. Very lucky," she murmured. "No," Jalen said, tilting his head to meet her gaze. "We're both lucky. You found me and I found you," she smiled, the corners of her eyes crinkling. "Yes, lucky, The city stretched out before them, vast and endless. But in that moment, all that mattered was the warmth between them. The trust, the laughter, and the love that had grown from fear. Courage and a shared journey. For Irina, the trip that had started as a dream of exploration had become a story of bravery, connection, and love that transcended words and borders. And for Jalen, the stranger who had stepped in to protect a lost tourist, it had become the story of finding someone worth caring for. Someone who had turned every moment of danger into a memory of intimacy and trust. As night fell and the city lights shimmered across the water, Irina and Jalen sat side by side, hands intertwined, hearts beating in quiet harmony. The adventure was far from over, but they knew one thing for certain. Together, they could face anything, and their story, born from fear and courage, would continue to unfold in love and laughter. Forever bright against the backdrop of a city that had witnessed the beginning of something extraordinary.